A father abandons his 3 little children, leaving them with a neighbor who never heard from him again. The kids grew up without answers, carrying the emptiness of a cruel abandonment. "Why didn't he come back, Auntie?" "He promised," whispered the youngest, crying every night. 2 decades later, when the man turns on the TV, he sees a familiar face on the screen, and something inside him collapses. But what happens next? No one could ever imagine. During the wake of 3 young children who tragically died— No, wait. That's not the story I want to tell you today. The story I'm going to tell you is much more impactful. It's about a father who abandoned 3 young children in the dead of night and only realized the size of the mistake he made 20 years later, when he saw one of them on television. It was 3 o'clock in the morning on a cold Tuesday when Robert Mitchell knocked desperately on the door of neighbor Eleanor Thompson. The man trembled from head to toe, carrying little 2-year-old Michael in his arms, while 8-year-old Tommy held the hand of his 6-year-old little sister, Sarah. The children were in their pajamas, barefoot, with their eyes swollen from crying. The icy wind of dawn cut through their exposed skins. Robert had lost everything in the last few weeks. After Patricia died of cancer 6 months earlier, he plunged into a gambling addiction that consumed every penny of the family. The house was pawned, the car seized by the moneylenders, and now dangerous men threatened him with death. "Eleanor, for God's sake, help me," Robert pleaded in a choked voice, knocking on the door urgently. "I'm desperate. I need you to take care of them just for a few days while I solve my problems." Eleanor Thompson was a 55-year-old widow with a kind heart who always helped anyone in need. She had lost her husband 5 years earlier in a work accident and lived alone in a simple 3-bedroom house. When he opened the door and saw that devastating scene, his heart tightened. Robert was clearly in despair, sweating cold even in the cold of the early morning, with deep dark circles under his eyes marking his tired face, and without shaving for days. "Oh my God, Robert!" "What happened? Where's Patricia?" asked Eleanor, referring to his wife who had passed away 6 months earlier. She had known the family for years, had seen the children grow up, played with them in the backyard. Robert couldn't look her in the eye. Her hands trembled holding Michael, who whimpered softly in her lap. I lost everything in the game, Eleanor. The house, the car, everything. The loan sharks are behind me. If I don't pay by tomorrow—" His voice cracked and he looked nervously over his shoulder as if he expected to see someone following him. "They will kill me. And the children. I can't let anything happen to them." Tommy, the eldest, pulled the hem of his neighbor's shirt with his cold little fingers. Her brown eyes were red with weeping and tiredness. "Aunt Eleanor, Daddy said we're going to stay here just a little bit," he said in a broken voice with tiredness. "He said he'll come back soon to pick us up." Sarah, hugging her favorite rag doll, the same one she had received from her mother for her last birthday, looked scared at the adults. Her blonde hair was unkempt and she shivered with cold and fear. "Aunt Eleanor, I'm scared," she whispered. Eleanor's heart shattered to see those 3 innocent children in that situation. Michael could barely speak properly. Sarah still believed in fairy tales. And Tommy, even though he was the oldest, was just a child who should be sleeping peacefully in his bed, dreaming of toys and adventures. How could he deny shelter to those innocent children? "So of course you can, my angel," he replied, stroking the boy's hair and opening the door wider. "Come in soon, you are so cold." Robert breathed a sigh of relief, but his gaze remained nervous, constantly staring at the dark street. "Thank you very much, Eleanor. Thank you very much. I'll be back in a few days. I swear to God I'll be back." He bent down, kissed each child's forehead urgently and whispered, "Daddy's coming back soon, okay? Behave well with Aunt Eleanor." Michael extended his little arms towards his father, his little blue eyes full of tears. "Daddy, don't leave," he whimpered, trying to cling to his father's torn jacket. "It's going to be quick, son." "Quick?" Robert lied, feeling his chest tighten. He knew he was lying. He knew he might never see those innocent little faces again. But I had no choice. The loan sharks had been clear. Either he paid until dawn or he would be killed. And if he were killed, what would happen to the children? Tommy, even as a child, realized that something was very wrong. "Dad, why can't we go with you?" Robert hesitated. How to explain to an 8-year-old boy that his father had destroyed the whole family because of addiction? Because Dad needs to solve some adult things, son. Soon I'll be back and we'll be together again." He handed a crumpled 50 reais bill into Eleanor's hands. the last money he had in the world. "Here there are 50 reais. It's all I have. Take good care of them, please." His voice was one of pure supplication. Eleanor took the money, but what really mattered was the welfare of those children. 50 reais wouldn't even be enough to feed them for a week, but she would do whatever it took. "It's going to be okay, Robert. Solve your problems and come back soon. The children will be safe here." Robert waved one last time, kissed each child once more, murmuring, "Daddy loves you," in each child's ear, and disappeared into the pre-dawn darkness. The noise of the borrowed car's old engine slowly drifted away down the deserted street, leaving behind 3 motherless children who were now fatherless as well. Eleanor closed the door and looked at the 3 children in her room. They seemed so small, so lost, so vulnerable. Michael cried softly. Sarah hugged the doll tighter, and Tommy tried to be strong for his younger siblings, but she saw the fear in his eyes. "You must be hungry," Eleanor said fondly. "How about a hot chocolate and some cookies?" And that's how the most beautiful and saddest story I've ever told here on the channel began. Eleanor Thompson watched the 3 children sitting at the kitchen table, eating the oatmeal she had prepared with the little milk she had in the fridge. Tommy tried to help Michael hold the spoon, while Sarah distractedly stirred the bowl, clearly lost in thought. The silence was broken only by the sound of spoons hitting the bowls and the occasional sobs from Michael, who still didn't understand why he had woken up in a strange house. "Aunt Eleanor," said Tommy in a small voice, swallowing the porridge unwillingly, "it's been 2 weeks since Daddy left. He said he would be back soon." Eleanor's heart tightened. She knew she needed to be careful with her words. How to explain to such young children that the father would probably not return? During those 2 weeks, she had tried to find Robert. He called all the places he knew, asked neighbors, even went to the store where he worked. "He was fired 3 months ago," said the manager. "There was a lot to be missed. I was always nervous. I suspect I had a gambling problem." "Sometimes adults have very complicated problems, Tommy," Eleanor said, sitting next to them. "But I want you to know one thing." She looked into the eyes of each child. "So you have a home here with me, always." Sarah raised her teary eyes. The girl was extremely sensitive and perceptive for her age. "Can we call you Grandma? My mother used to say that Grandma is the one who takes care of us with affection." Eleanor felt the tears come. He had never had children of his own. She tried for years with her late husband, but failed to get pregnant. And now God put 3 children in his life. "Of course they can, my angel. Of course they can." "Grandma Eleanor," Michael said, clapping his hands. It was the first time he had smiled since he had arrived there. And that's how 3 fatherless and motherless children found a new family. Eleanor, who had never had children of her own, suddenly found herself the mother of 3. She didn't have much money. She lived on her husband's pension and sporadic cleaning. But she had something much more valuable: unconditional love. The first week was the hardest. The children woke up crying in the middle of the night. Michael would scream, "Mommy, Dad," and Eleanor would spend hours rocking the boy. Tommy had constant nightmares and woke up sweaty, looking for his father. Sarah would wet the bed every night and be embarrassed. "No problem, honey," Eleanor said as she changed the sheets. "When I was little, I did it too. It's normal when we get nervous." To support the 3 children, Eleanor had to work hard. She got a job as a cleaner in 2 houses during the day and still cleaned an office at night. "I left home at 6 in the morning and only returned at 10 at night." During the day, he left the children with Mrs. Marta, an elderly neighbor who charged little to take care of them. Tommy, even though he was just a child, took on responsibilities beyond his years. He took care of his siblings when Eleanor had to work late, who checked to see if Sarah had brushed her teeth, and who rocked Michael when he woke up crying in the middle of the night, calling for his mother. "Tommy, you don't have to do all that," Eleanor would say when she got home and found the boy tidying up the kitchen, his clothes folded and his brothers already bathed. "You're a child, you have to play." "No, Grandma Eleanor. I'm the big brother. I have to take care of Sarah and Michael," he replied with a heartbreaking seriousness. "My mother always said that I was the little man of the house." Eleanor knelt at his height and hugged him tightly. "Your heart is huge, my son, but let Grandma take care of you too, okay?" The first months were difficult to adapt. Eleanor had to learn to deal with 3 different personalities. Tommy was too responsible for his age, always trying to protect his siblings. Sarah was sensitive and intelligent, but she had crying spells when she remembered her parents. Michael was too young to understand, but he missed his parents and was glued to Eleanor all the time. Sarah proved to be an extremely intelligent girl. At school, even though she wore clothes that Eleanor bought at thrift stores and mended at home, she always got the best grades. He devoured the books in the school library and asked questions that impressed the teachers. "Sarah has an exceptional talent for studies," said teacher Donna Carmen during a meeting. "With the right support, she can go very far. Have you ever thought about putting her in a private school?" Eleanor lowered her head. "I can't afford it, teacher. I can barely afford the food." "I understand," the teacher said fondly, "but I'll help as I can. I have books at home that I can lend to her." Eleanor promised herself that she would do her best to get Sarah to study. On the nights when she came home exhausted from work, she still helped the girl with her homework, even when her eyelids were heavy with fatigue. Michael, the youngest, adapted more quickly than his brothers. For him, who was only 2 years old when he was abandoned, Eleanor has always been Mommy. When he turned 4 and someone asked about his parents, he proudly pointed to Eleanor. "That's my mommy, and these are my brothers." Life was not easy. Eleanor worked miracles with the little money she earned. He bought the cheapest bones at the butcher shop and made nutritious soups. She sewed clothes that she received as a donation so that they could fit the children. Often she would dine on just a loaf of bread with margarine so that the children could have a full meal. "Why does Grandma Eleanor never eat with us?" asked Sarah one day, now 8 years old and more observant. Tommy, now 10, had noticed it a long time ago. He watched when Eleanor served the food and said she had dinner at work, but he noticed how she looked at their food, hungry. "She says she had dinner at work," he replied quietly. But the brothers exchanged a look of understanding. The next night, the 3 children got together and put half of the food away from their plates. It was pasta with tomato sauce and some sausages, a special meal Eleanor had prepared because she had gotten extra work that day. When Eleanor came home from work, exhausted and with a sore back, they were waiting for her in the kitchen with a dish covered in a cloth. "Grandma, we saved dinner for you," Michael said, pushing a full plate in her direction. Eleanor tried to protest. "You don't need to, my angel. I ate at the office," but Sarah was firm. "We know that you don't have dinner at work. We saw the lady running her hand over her belly when she thinks no one is looking." At that moment, Eleanor couldn't hold back her tears. She hugged the 3 children tightly, feeling her heart overflow with love. "How have I been blessed by God with the 3 of you?" This was the first time Eleanor cried in front of the children since they arrived, not of sadness but of pure gratitude. But to understand how Robert got to the point of abandoning 3 young children in the early hours of the morning, I need to go back in time and tell you the story of this man who was once a loving and devoted father. 2 years before that fateful night, Robert Mitchell was a completely different man. He had worked as a salesman in a car shop for more than 10 years, earned well, had his own house in a middle-class neighborhood, and a family that was his reason for living. Patricia, his wife of 12 years, was a nurse in a public hospital, and together they raised Tommy, Sarah and little Michael with a lot of love and dedication. "My love, look what Tommy drew at school today," Patricia said when she came home from work, showing a drawing of the family where everyone was smiling and holding hands. It was a simple drawing made with crayons, but it showed a happy family. Dad, Mom, and 3 children in a house with colored windows and a yellow sun in the corner. Robert would take his son in his arms and rotate him around the room. "This is the artist of the family. When you grow up, you'll be a famous cartoonist," he said, provoking laughter in the boy. "Dad, tell the story of the dragon," asked Sarah, joining her father and brother. "And the brave knight," added Tommy. The nights were always like this, filled with laughter, bedtime stories, and shared dreams. Robert would come home from work and the children would run to hug him. "Daddy has arrived. Daddy has arrived." So they shouted in chorus, disputing who would get first in his arms. Patricia watched the scene from the kitchen, smiling as she prepared dinner. "You're a wonderful father," he said to Robert when they were finally able to be alone. "And you're the most amazing mom in the world," he replied, kissing his wife's forehead. "Our children are very lucky." On Sundays, the whole family went to the park. Robert would push the kids on the swing. Patricia would bring homemade snacks and they would spend hours there, simply enjoying each other's company. "When I grow up, I want to be like Dad," Tommy said one day, hanging on his father's back. But then, like lightning in a blue sky, Patricia began to experience constant headaches. At first, they thought it was just fatigue from working at the hospital. The shifts were demanded, she came home exhausted. "It's just stress, my love. You work too much," Robert said, massaging his wife's temples as she lay on the couch. "Why don't you ask for a few days off?" "I can't. The hospital is full. There are no people. And we need my salary," Patricia replied, trying to smile so as not to worry her husband. The pain progressively worsened. Patricia began to have nausea, dizziness, and some mornings she couldn't even get out of bed. Robert started making breakfast for the children and taking them to school when Patricia couldn't. "Mommy is sick?" asked Michael, with his 2 years old, seeing his mother always lying down. "Mommy's going to be fine, son," Robert said, carrying the boy in his arms. Soon she'll be playing with you again." Patricia fainted a few times during working hours at the hospital. Her co-workers were concerned and insisted that she see a doctor. After much resistance, she gave in. The first tests showed nothing conclusive. "It could be stress, extreme tiredness, low blood pressure," said the general practitioner. "We're going to do some more tests to be sure." But Robert noticed that Patricia was different. Sometimes she forgot simple things like where she had put her keys or what day it was. One morning she woke up confused, not knowing where she was. "Robert, where am I?" she asked, looking around her room as if it were the first time she had seen him. That's when Robert insisted that she do more detailed tests. CT scan, MRI, a full battery of tests. They waited 2 weeks for the results, 2 weeks in which Patricia visibly worsened by the day. When they finally received the call asking to come to the doctor's office, the two knew it wasn't good news. Doctors don't call patients to give good news in person. "Unfortunately, the scans revealed a brain tumor," said the oncologist, showing the MRI images. "Glioblastoma multiforme. It's aggressive and it's already at an advanced stage." Robert felt the world come crashing down. Patricia held his hand tightly, but he saw the fear in his wife's eyes. "How much? How long?" asked Robert, his voice fading. "With the most aggressive treatment we have available, from 6 months to a year. Without the treatment, a few months," the doctor replied carefully. "And the chances of cure?" insisted Patricia. The doctor hesitated. "With this type of tumor, at an advanced stage, the chances are very small. But we're going to fight with everything we've got." The return home was silent. The children ran to hug their mother as they always did, but this time Robert saw Patricia hug them as if it were the last time. "Mommy, why are you so sad?" asked Sarah with her childlike sensitivity. "We're not sad, Princess," Patricia lied, stroking her daughter's hair. "We're just tired." From that moment on, the family's life was turned upside down. Robert constantly missed work to take Patricia to chemotherapy sessions. The medicines were very expensive, even with the health plan. The radiotherapy sessions left Patricia weak and nauseated. "Robert will make it," Patricia said, even though she was weakened by the treatment, losing weight quickly and with her hair falling out in handfuls. "For our children, we will succeed." But the costs piled up in a frightening way. Experimental medicines that cost thousands of reais, consultations with private specialists, constant exams. Robert sold the new car and bought a used one, then sold some furniture in the house. He asked for loans from friends, relatives, co-workers, anyone who could help. Tommy, then 6 years old, began to realize that something was very wrong. "Why is Mom always sleeping? Why doesn't she play with us more?" "Mommy is sick, son, but soon it will be fine," Robert lied, hiding his despair. How to explain to a child that the mother was dying? Patricia has spent the last few months mostly in bed. Even so, she tried to be strong for the children. When they came home from school, she made an effort to smile, to talk, to show interest in their activities. That's when a co-worker introduced Robert to the game. Marcus was a salesman like him, but he always had money to have lunch in expensive restaurants. He wore designer clothes. "Robert, man, I see you destroyed. I have a way for you to make quick money to pay for Patricia's treatment," Marcus said during lunch. "What do you mean?" asked Robert, interested. He was desperate. The bills piled up, and Patricia needed an experimental treatment in the United States that cost a fortune. Jogo do bicho, sports betting, online casino. I know some people who have accurate schemes. Last time I turned 500 reais into 5,000 in one night. Robert hesitated. "I had never bet in my life, not even in the lottery." "I don't know, man. That's not something for me. Think about Patricia, Robert. Think about the children." It's a chance to get the money you need quickly. And look at that. Marcus showed the cell phone with the balance of the bank account. 50,000 reais. Everything in the game. 20 years have passed since that fateful night. Eleanor Thompson, now 75 years old, proudly watched the 3 children she had raised. Her hair was completely white, her hands wrinkled by time and work, but her eyes still shone with the same love as always. Tommy graduated from medical school on a full scholarship after studying like crazy throughout high school, majored in heart surgery, and worked at one of the best hospitals in the city. Sarah became a criminal lawyer and defended cases of needy families for free, building a solid reputation as an advocate for the oppressed. Michael had graduated in civil engineering and worked on social housing projects, building houses for those who needed it most. Grandma Eleanor, you saved our lives, Tommy said every time he visited her, kissing the forehead of the woman who raised him. If it weren't for you, I don't know what would have become of us. You saved my life too, Eleanor replied, caressing the face of the man she had raised since she was 8. They gave meaning to my existence. It was a Sunday morning in the fall when Tommy received an unexpected invitation. The program Heroes Anonymous of the National Television Network wanted to do a special report on his humanitarian work in public hospitals. Tommy performed free surgeries on children in need every weekend and had saved hundreds of lives over the past 5 years. His story had reached the ears of the show's production through a nurse who posted a video on social media showing Tommy operating on a child free of charge. Dr. Tommy, could you tell us what motivated you to choose this path? Asked journalist Mariana Godoy during the live interview. They were at the hospital where Tommy worked, and in the background you could see the typical movement of a crowded public emergency room. Tommy smiled, but his eyes filled with tears. It was difficult to talk about the past without getting emotional. I was abandoned by my father when I was 8 years old, along with my 2 younger brothers. Our mother had died of cancer 6 months earlier, and my father, well, he disappeared in the dead of night, left us at a neighbor's house and never came back. The journalist leaned in, interested. The program had a peak audience. Millions of people watched at that time. And what happened to you after that? A neighbor named Eleanor Thompson took us in, Tommy continued, his voice choked with emotion. She had no obligation. She was not related to us. She did not have much money, but she had a heart bigger than the world. Tommy paused, trying to control his emotion. She worked 3 jobs to raise us, gave up her own life for the 3 of us. She never married again, never thought of herself. When I operate on a needy child, I think of him. I think about how an act of love can change lives forever. What a beautiful lesson, said the journalist. And your brothers? How are they today? My sister Sarah is a lawyer and defends needy families. My brother Michael is an engineer and builds affordable housing. We all learned from Eleanor that life only makes sense when we help those in need. And your father? Have you heard from him in these 20 years? Tommy took a deep breath. Never again. He simply disappeared from our lives. I don't even know if he's alive. Across town, in a squalid downtown apartment, Robert Mitchell watched television in an old, torn armchair. At the age of 58, he was a man completely destroyed by life. His grey hair was unkempt and dirty. His beard had not been shaved for weeks, his sunken eyes marked by years of suffering and addictions. The apartment was tiny, smelly, with peeling walls and broken furniture. On the table, empty bottles of cachaça and remains of sour food. When he heard the name Tommy on television, he didn't care at first. He was drinking his 3rd beer of the day, trying to forget another week of unemployment and humiliation. But when the camera focused on the doctor's face, Robert almost knocked over the bottle he was holding. No, it can't be, he murmured, getting closer to the old, squeaking TV. He rubbed his eyes, thinking he was seeing things because of the drink. It was Tommy. Your Tommy. The brown-haired boy he used to carry on his shoulders, who waited for him at the door every night, who drew "I love you, Dad" letters. Now he was a man, a respected doctor, saving lives, being interviewed on national television. My son. My God, what have I done? Whispered Robert, falling to his knees on the cold, dirty floor of the apartment. Tommy's words echoed in his mind like stabs. He disappeared in the dead of night. A neighbor took us in. She gave up her life for us. Robert cried like he hadn't cried in years. 20 years of remorse, 20 years of guilt, 20 years of regret came to the surface all at once. He had lost everything because of addiction. First his wife to cancer, then his children because of abandonment, dignity, the chance to be a father, to see his children grow up, to be present at graduations, first jobs, first courtships. In those 20 years, Robert had lived through a particular hell. He had been through rehab 5 times, always relapsing into gambling and drinking. He got some jobs that he soon lost due to absences and behavioral problems. He lived on the street for 3 years, sleeping under bridges and begging. He was alone, completely alone, penniless, surviving on sporadic odd jobs like carrying groceries in the supermarket or watching cars. Eleanor Thompson repeated the name several times, the kind neighbor who had saved his children while he abandoned them. She did what he should have done. She was the mother her children deserved, but seeing Tommy on television, seeing the incredible man his son had become, awakened in him something that had been dead for decades. Hope. Perhaps it was not too late. Maybe he could at least ask for forgiveness. I need to see them, he whispered to himself, wiping away tears with the back of his dirty hand. I need to ask for forgiveness. I need to try to fix what I broke. Robert spent the whole night thinking, drinking, and crying. For the first time in 20 years, he felt something other than self-pity. He felt the urgent need to do something, to try to redeem himself. The next day, he took a cold shower, put on the only decent clothes he had, faded jeans and a yellowed dress shirt he had won in a donation drive, and went to Eleanor's house. His hands trembled uncontrollably as he rang the doorbell. 20 years later, he was back at that door where he had left his children on a cold dawn. Eleanor opened the door and for a moment was speechless. The man in front of her was unrecognizable, older, much thinner, with deep wrinkles, dark circles under her eyes, but she recognized him by his eyes. Those same eyes he had seen in that dawn of despair. "Robert?" she whispered incredulously, holding the door handle tightly. "Eleanor, His voice completely failed. 20 years of unspoken words have piled up in my throat. I saw Tommy on television yesterday. I saw what an amazing man he became." Eleanor looked at him with a mixture of sadness, pent-up anger, and pity. 20 years had passed. She had raised those 3 boys alone, she had given up her own life for them, and now this man appeared on her doorstep. 20 years, Robert. 20 years you took to appear, she said, her voice firm but not aggressive. I know I have no excuse. I know I don't even deserve to be standing here at your door." Robert took off his old humble cap. "But I need to see them. I need to ask for forgiveness. I need to try to explain." Eleanor remained silent for a few seconds, studying this destroyed man. Part of her wanted to close the door in his face and protect her children from this unnecessary pain. Another part, the one who had always been too kind for her own good, felt sorry for that shattered human being. "They've been coming here for dinner every Sunday for 20 years, he said finally, opening the door a little wider. "Today is Sunday, if you want to wait. But I warn you, they don't know you're alive. For them, you died that night. Can I wait?" "Would you let him?" Eleanor sighed deeply. "Robert, I forgive you. I forgave you a long time ago. Otherwise, the hatred would have consumed me. But they are the ones who need to forgive you. And that forgiveness, if it comes, you're going to have to earn with much more than words." It was 5 o'clock in the afternoon when Tommy, Sarah, and Michael arrived for Sunday dinner at Eleanor's house, as they had religiously done for 20 years. Sarah brought her young daughter, Elena, 3, a curly-haired little girl who called Eleanor great-grandmother. Michael arrived with his girlfriend, Carla, a public school teacher he had been dating for 2 years and intended to propose to soon. Tommy came alone, as always, too dedicated to work to maintain lasting relationships. "Grandma Eleanor, I brought that wine you like," Sarah said, kissing the wrinkled face of the woman who raised her. "And I also brought Elena's photos at school. She's learning to write her great-grandmother's name. And I brought the flowers from your favorite garden," added Michael, handing over a bouquet of daisies he had picked on the way. Carla helped choose the most beautiful ones. Tommy hugged Eleanor fondly. "How was the week, Grandma? Did you take your blood pressure medication properly?" Eleanor was visibly nervous. During the 5 hours before their arrival, she had talked to Robert in the living room. He cried constantly, telling about the 20 years of suffering, the attempts to recover from addiction, the periods on the street, the absolute loneliness, the regret that consumed him every day. "They're amazing people." "Robert," Eleanor said, watching the man, Tommy saves lives every day, operates on children for free. Sarah defends families who cannot afford a lawyer. She has already taken several people out of jail unfairly. Michael builds houses for those who have nowhere to live. They became everything you should have taught them. I know, Robert replied, his voice broken, looking at the pictures of the children Eleanor kept on the shelf. Photos of graduations, birthdays, Christmas, 20 years of memories, of which he was not a part. I lost everything. I missed the chance to see them grow up, to be at graduations, to meet my granddaughter, to be a grandfather. Sarah suffered a lot in the early years, Eleanor continued. She did therapy for free at a college clinic because she had nightmares about you. I thought I had done something wrong for you to leave. Robert bowed, his hands on his face. My God, my little princess. Tommy has taken on adult responsibilities since he was a child. He took care of his siblings, helped me with everything, never complained. He became a man at the age of 8. What about Michael? Michael grew up calling me Mommy. For him, you never existed. He has no memory of you. When the three arrived in the living room and saw Robert sitting on the couch, the world seemed to stop. The silence was absolute, as if someone had paused their life. Tommy was the first to recognize it, even after 20 years. The features of the face, despite the ravages of time and vices, were still the same. No, whispered Tommy, turning pale as paper. His legs trembled and he had to lean against the wall. It can't be. Sarah left Elena on the floor and approached slowly as if she were seeing a ghost. His hands trembled uncontrollably. Daddy? He asked, his voice fading, as if he were a 6-year-old again. Michael, who was only 2 years old when he was abandoned and was now 22, looked confused between the brothers and this unknown man. Carla, noticing the tension, instinctively took Elena in her arms. Who is this man, Grandma Eleanor? Asked Michael, genuinely not recognizing Robert. Tommy replied in a voice full of bitterness, his eyes filling with tears of anger accumulated over 2 decades. That's our dad, Michael, the man who abandoned us when you were 2. The silence that followed was fraught with 20 years of pain, abandonment, therapies, nightmares, and resentment. The air in the room became heavy, almost unbreathable. Robert stood up slowly, his hands shaking uncontrollably. My children, began, but Tommy interrupted him with a burst of emotion suppressed for decades. No, you have no right to call us that, burst out Tommy, his eyes filled with tears of anger. You have abandoned us. He left 3 small children motherless at a neighbor's house and disappeared like a coward. Sarah also couldn't contain the emotion she had kept for 20 years. Do you know how many nights I cried waiting for you to come back? How many times did I look out the window thinking I was going to see your car coming? He shouted, tears streaming down his face. How many times did Michael ask where Dad is, and I didn't know what to answer because I wanted to know too? Robert tried to get closer, but Tommy took a step back, raising his hand. Don't get close. 20 years! It took you 20 years to remember that you had children. I've never forgotten you, Robert said, his voice choked and desperate. Not a day has passed, not an hour has passed without me thinking about the 3 of you. Lie, shouted Sarah, now furious. If he thought about us, he would have come back. He would have fought for us. I would have chosen us instead of whatever was more important. Michael, still trying to process the situation, looked at Eleanor. Grandma, explain what's going on here. Eleanor approached and took the hand of the boy, the one she considered her youngest. Michael, dear, this man is your biological father. When his mother died of cancer, he was going through very serious problems with games and brought us to stay here one night, and it never came back, Tommy added bitterly. It just disappeared from our lives. Robert fell to his knees in the middle of the room, a devastating spectacle of a completely shattered man. I know I have no excuse. I know I was the worst father in the world, the greatest coward who ever lived, but I was destroyed. I lost Patricia, I was addicted to gambling. I owed a fortune to loan sharks who threatened to kill me. And the solution was to abandon us. Sarah was hysterical. You chose to save your own skin and abandon 3 orphaned children. I thought you'd be better off without me, Robert cried, his words breaking out. I had no money, no home, no way to take care of you. I was broke, destroyed. Tommy laughed with bitter irony, a joyless laugh. Better without you? Do you have any idea what we went through? Grandma Eleanor worked like a slave to raise us. She did 3 jobs, slept 4 hours a night. And he never complained, Sarah added, pointing to Eleanor. Never. Even when she didn't even have money to buy food for herself, she never complained about having 3 children to raise. Michael, finally understanding the scale of the situation, looked at Robert with a mixture of curiosity and deep disappointment. "So you're my father. The father I never knew, that I created 1,000 stories in my head about who it would be." Michael's innocent question was like a stab in Robert's heart. "Yes, son, I am your father. And I'm the biggest failure as a human being that ever existed." "No," Michael said quietly with a maturity that impressed everyone. "My father has been dead for 20 years. Grandma Eleanor, Tommy and Sarah raised me. They are my real family." Robert completely collapsed. 20 years of guilt, 20 years of regret, 20 years of dreaming of this reunion, imagining 1,000 different scenarios. And now he was there, shattered in front of his children, who no longer recognized him as a father. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness," he sobbed. "I know that I destroyed everything, that I lost the right to be called father. But I needed to see you. I needed to know if you were okay. I needed to ask for forgiveness even though I know I don't deserve it." "How were we?" Tommy was shaking with pent-up emotion. "We were fine despite you. We grew up well because Grandma Eleanor loved us, as you should have loved us." Sarah walked over, her face wet with tears. "Do you know what hurts the most? It is knowing that Grandma Eleanor, who had no obligation to us, did everything a father should do. And you, who were our blood father, chose to disappear." Eleanor, her 3-year-old granddaughter, began to cry with all that screaming. Carla took her in her arms and took her to another room. The tension in the room was unbearable. Robert looked at Eleanor, who watched in silence, heartbroken to see so much suffering. "Eleanor," Robert said in a completely broken voice, "Thank you. Thank you for doing what I should have done. Thank you for being the mother, the father, the family that they deserved." Eleanor slowly approached. He put his trembling hand on Robert's shoulder and said with the wisdom of someone who has lived long and learned about forgiveness, "Robert, I forgive you. I forgave you a long time ago, because holding a grudge only hurts those who do. But forgiveness does not erase the consequences of our choices. These 3 have become wonderful people not because of you, but in spite of you. And that's something you're going to have to live with forever."